Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi shir.
Shalom and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, Brachos, Lamed Vav. We're on Daf Lamed Hey Amud Beis. 6 lines from the bottom says the Gemara Gufa. We just learned the halacha, Omar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. V'chein, Omar Rav Yitzchak, Omar Rav Yochanan. Shemen Zayis, what bracha does one make when he drinks olive oil? Shemen Zayis, mevorchen olav boirei perioitz. We make a boirei perioitz. Says the Gemara, Hechi Dami. In what form is this fellow ingesting the olive oil? He's drinking in its pure form. He's drinking the actual oil. And that requires an eitz? That can't be. Azuke mazakle. When one drinks olive oil, this is harmful to the person. This is not considered to be an act of eating or drinking. This is not a masa, achila, or shtiya, as Rashi explains. When the Torah speaks about the obligation to make a bracha on food, the Torah says, v'ochalta, v'savata, v'rachta, you should eat and then make a bracha. Merely ingesting food which harms the person, that is not considered to be a masa, achila, which obligates a bracha. So it can't be speaking about this type of case. Says the Gemara, the Sanya, as we have learned in the Brisa, which discusses the halacha of a Yisrael eating truma. He ate truma inadvertently b'shoigeg. The halacha is he needs to pay a keren v'chomesh, the principal value, plus to add a fifth. But this is only restricted to the case of one who eats or drinks truma. If one is merely mazik truma, he damages truma, in that case, there is no halacha of chomesh. He merely pays the keren, the value, and that's it. Says the Brisa, if one drinks oil of truma, that is considered to be harmful to the person, and if it's harming the person, then it's not considered to be an act of eating, a ma'asa achila, and he is merely being mazik the truma, he's damaging the truma, and in that case, he only pays a keren and not a chomesh. Let's see inside. The Sanya, as we learned, one drinks oil of truma, mishalom asa keren, he only pays the keren, the principal value, and mishalom asa chomesh, but does not add a fifth. Apparently, this is a ma'aseh hezek. He is damaging the truma. Since by ingesting the truma, he is harming himself, this is not an act of eating, he's merely destroying the truma within himself. However, if he anoints himself with the oil of truma, sicha, anointing himself, is tantamount to shtia, to drinking, and in that case, mashal masa keren, or mashal masa chomesh, needs to pay a keren and a fifth. So apparently ingesting oil in its pure form is not a masa achila and doesn't require a bracha. Says Gemara, Ella must be that we're speaking about the ka'achal al pas. He's eating the oil together with bread, and in this case, it requires a bracha. Since it doesn't harm him, it is considered to be a ma'asa achila. Says Gemara, if he's eating it together with bread, havi the pas ikar. The bread is the ikar, is the primary item here. V'hu tafel, and the oil is merely subordinate. And we know the halacha, v'tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, zakal, this is the general rule. Kol shu ikar, when there's a primary food, v'hi might fail, and together with it, a tafel, a subordinate, a secondary food, mevorech ala ikar. He only makes a bracha on the ikar, on the primary food, u'poiter satfil, and that exempts the subordinate foods. In this case, when the oil is being eaten together with bread, the oil has a status of a tafel and doesn't require its own bracha. Ella, says the Gemara, must be speaking on the following case. The kashas le'adei anigroin. He's putting the oil into the anigroin, into the beet juice. Damar Rabba Shmuel, anigroin mai, the silka. Anigroin means the water of cooked beets. Ansigroin is mai, the kula shilki, some type of soup from a variety of cooked vegetables. So since he's putting the shemen as an ingredient into the beet soup, in this case, it requires a bracha. Says in 1 second. Imkain, or back to the same kasha, havali anigroin ikra. The anigroin, the beet soup, is the ikra, is the primary ingredient. V'shemen tofel, and the oil which he puts in there as an ingredient is merely a subordinate ingredient. And we know the halacha tanan. Zeklal, this is a rule. Kol shu ikra v'maytfel. When you have an ikra and a tofel, mevarach ala ikra, he makes a bracha on the ikra. U'paiter satfel, that exempts the tofel. So oil in beet juice doesn't require its own bracha. Says the Gemara, we're speaking about a special, unique circumstance. The person has pain in his throat, and he requires the oil. He requires lots of oil in his anigroin. He puts shemen harbi, Rashi says, into the anigroin in order to soothe his throat. In that case, the shemen assumes the status of primary ingredient. That is the ikar, and requires a boyer prietz. As we will find in the following brisa, which describes a similar circumstance, the Sanya, as we learned. This being met on Shabbos, I know the Chachamim prohibited one from engaging in refuah, in a therapeutic process for minor aches and pains, because we're choishish that this may lead to shchikas samemanim, to grinding the ingredients of the medicines, which is a issa d'oraisa, biblical prohibition. Therefore, something which is a refuah hanikeres, which is something which is done obvious for refuah, is asr on Shabbos. So if one has an ache, a pain in his throat, says the Mishnah's Braysa choishish v'groin lo yar'enu b'shemen tchila b'Shabbos. You can't take oil and gargle oneself in his throat and have the intent of spitting it out, since this is a master of four, which is nikkur. It's obvious that he's doing it for a therapeutic purpose. Avo, but he could do the following: nice and shemen harb, let's say chanigron ubaleya. He could put a lot of oil into the anigron, into his beetroot, ubaleya, and go ahead and swallow it. Since he's ingesting it, it looks like he's eating it, and it's not obvious that he's doing it for a four. So we see a similar concept. One has an ache in his throat, a sore throat. He goes ahead and he puts a lot of the shemen into the anigroin, and this will soothe his throat. So in our case as well, since he inserts a lot of shemen into the anigroin, the shemen becomes the ikar and requires a boyer priates. Continues to go out pshita. Okay, so then it's obvious that it requires a bracha boyer priates. So what is the chiddush? What is the teaching of Rabbi Yehuda Mashmol? It's self-evident. What are they coming to teach us? When one eats something, it requires a bracha. No, perhaps I would think that this is different. And since intent is for refuah, for therapy, perhaps it doesn't require a bracha at all. Since his ikar intention, his main kavanah is for refuah, refuah doesn't require a bracha. No, kamash malan. That's what Rabbi Yehuda Mashmol teaches us. Since he derives pleasure and benefit from it, even though his main intent is to soothe his throat, it requires a bracha. As Taisus explains to us, if one merely ingests a medicine that he derives no pleasure from, certainly that doesn't require a bracha. However, in the case where medicine provides one with pleasure, that requires a bracha. So in conclusion, regarding olive oil, if one is shoysa olive oil, he drinks olive oil as is in its pure form, that is mazik the person, that harms the person, and doesn't require any bracha. If he has the olive oil together with bread, then he makes a bracha on the bread, which is the ikar, and that exempts the tafel, which is the oil. If he inserts it as an ingredient, as a secondary ingredient into the anigroin, that too doesn't require a bracha, since the bracha on the ikar, which is the anigroin, exempts paters the shemen, which is a tafel. Finally, if he puts a lot of shemen into the anigroin, since he needs it for his sore throat, in that case, the shemen becomes the ikar and requires a bracha of boyer priya eitz. Continues the Gemara, kimcha dechiti. Wheat flour, what bracha does one make on that? Now we know if one chews actual wheat, he makes a boyer priya adama. What about the flour, wheat flour? According to Rashi, we're speaking about finely ground flour. Taisa says, no, that's barely edible. We're speaking about more coarse flour, or flour that's made of toasted grains. So what is the halacha? What bracha does one make on this type of flour? Rav Yehuda Amar boyer priya adama. He makes a hadama, which is the same bracha that one makes upon chewing the actual wheat. Rav Nachman Amar no, shakol niya b'dvorah. He merely makes a shahakol, since this is not the actual wheat in its original state. It turned it into flour, therefore it doesn't retain its bracha of hadama, but he merely makes a shahakol, which is a more general bracha. Amalei Rav Nachman, lo sifla galei the Rav Yehuda. Don't disagree, don't argue with Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says that one makes a hadama, it retains its original bracha, it doesn't change just because it became flour. Don't disagree with him. Why? The Rav Yochanan and Shmuel kamekavasei. Rav Yochanan and Shmuel both agree with Rav Yehuda's reasoning. The Amar Vida Mashmuel, B'chein Rav Yochanan, Shemen Zayis, Mevorachan Olav Boyer Priate. We just had this halacha that although the olive was changed into oil, nevertheless you make a eitz. Apparently it retains its original bracha even though it changes forms. Here too, says the Gemara, Alma apparently afagav the ishtan, even though it changes forms, b'mosakaya retains its original status, original bracha of boyer priates. Just as you make a eitz on the olive, you make a eitz on the oil. Hachanami here too regarding flour. Afagav the ishtan, even though it changes forms, it turned from wheat into flour, b'mosakaya retains its original status, and you remain with the boyer priya adama. Says 1 second, midami. How could you compare flour to oil? Over there is no intent, there's no plan to improve it even more, to develop it more. The oil is the final phase of development, which was intended originally when it was planted. When they planted the olives, This is what they had in mind. This is the final stage of development. Therefore, it's considered to be derech achilasai. It's considered to be the way of ingesting it, the way of consuming it. It's considered to be the pre. It is not considered to have lost its status. However, hacha by wheat flour, the intent is to take the flour and turn it into bread. So it hadn't yet arrived at its final status of development. Hacha isli ilu yachrin pas. It has an additional stage of improvement, meaning to turn into pas. Therefore, since it left its original form, it is not chitim anymore, so you can't make adam on it. And since it hasn't reached its final state yet, hasn't reached its final phase, you still have intention to improve it further. So it's not a peri, and it's not really the derech achila, and therefore you don't make hadama, but merely a shahakal. So you can't compare the two things. It can't be a proof from the halacha of shemen zayis, which requires ha'etz, to wheat flour. Perhaps over here it is only a shahakal, not hadama. Says the Gemara, is that so? Is this reasoning sound? Is that true when something has still an additional state of development planned for it? When it has an additional improvement that is intended to it, therefore that is reason, that is basis, that is the ground for not making hadam on it. Is that true? Is that true? He told us the following halach: akara chaya on a raw pumpkin, the kimcha desari on barley flour, which is more inferior than a lower level of chashivas than wheat flour. On both of these items, you make a shakal. My love, perhaps this implies the chiti bar piadama. The reason why he said that barley flour requires a shakal and not wheat flour, apparently wheat flour is different, and that requires a bar piadama since it's more chashiv, it's superior. So apparently wheat flour retains its hadama in accordance with the shita of Rav Yehuda. Says the Gemara, no, loy, the chiti nami shakolim edvari. Even chiti, even the flour of a wheat flour requires a shahakal, not hadama. If so, why does he state the halacha regarding barley flour? V'shmin and the chiti, why doesn't he tell us the halacha regarding wheat flour? Wheat flour requires a shahakal, and you would know the koshke and the sar, and certainly barley flour, which is inferior to wheat flour, would require a shahakal. So the fact that he states the halacha regarding barley flour, that implies that only kemach sa'irim, which is inferior, gets a shahakal. But kimcha dechiti, wheat flour, requires adama. Says the Gemara, no. Perhaps they're equal. Both wheat flour and barley flour both have a shahakal. If so, why does he speak about sa'irim, iyashmin and dechiti? Because if he would have taught us halacha regarding wheat flour, havamina, perhaps I would say, hanamili dechiti, only wheat flour requires a bracha, period. Aval the sa'ari, barley flour doesn't require any bracha altogether. The Gemara soon will explain why. And therefore he needs to teach us. Rav Zera needs to teach us that no, even barley flour requires a bracha. Which bracha? Shahakal. However, perhaps even wheat flour also requires a shahakal and not a hadama. So you have no diuk, you have no way to imply, to infer from Rav Zera regarding the halacha of chitim. Says more, 1 second, why would I even entertain that barley flour is patur from a bracha altogether? Migara, is it worse than melech v'zamis, from salt and brine? The snan, as we learned, ala melech v'zamis. Oimer shakolni b'dvari, on salt and brine, what makes a shahakal? So why would I even entertain, why would I even have a havamina that barley flour is patur? Says more, itzrich, yes, he needs to teach us. Why? I would think that there's a difference. Melech v'zamis, salt and brine, person would occasionally throw it into his mouth and eat it. Therefore, it requires a bracha. Aval kimcha desari, barley flour, it can bring intestinal worms and can harm the person. Perhaps wouldn't require any bracha. Kamashmon, therefore he teaches us no. Since he derives pleasure from it, it requires a bracha. So therefore, in conclusion, perhaps chitim and sa'irim have the same halacha. The flour from both wheat and barley are both a shahakal. Why then does he state his halacha regarding barley flour? It is merely to teach us that requires a bracha, to rule out this havamina, this suggestion that barley flour doesn't require bracha since it is mazik, the person who creates the worms. So he needs to teach us, no, it requires a bracha since a person derives pleasure from it. So in conclusion, what is the halacha of flour? So flour coming from barley requires a shahakal. L'kuliyam, everybody agrees to that. Since it is inferior flour than wheat flour. Regarding wheat flour, we have a machlokes. According to Rav Yehuda, you make a hadama. It retains its original status, just like if one eats chews on wheat, there's a hadama, so too the flour coming from wheat retains the same halacha, and we have boyer pri hadama. According to Rav Nachman, since it left its original form and hasn't yet arrived at its final destination, which is bread, it loses its status, and we only make a shakoil niyah b'dvar. Continues the Gemara. Kura, what about shoots of the palm tree? As Rashi explains, these are the young branches. They're still edible until they eventually harden. What bracha does one make on those? Rav Yehuda omer pri adama. Rav Shmuel omer shakoil niyah b'dvar. Rav Yehuda omer pri adama. Why? Peru, it's a fruit, it's edible. Ushmuel omer shakoil niyah b'dvar. Why? Hoil v'seifel lahakshei, since eventually it would harden, it's going to become a full-fledged branch. That's not considered to be food. And therefore, we make a shahakol. It's not considered to be a true fruit, a true food, and therefore we make a general bracha of shahakol. Amalei Shmuel Rav Yehuda. Shmuel, who disputed Rav Yehuda, turned around and told Rav Yehuda, Shinan, a sharp one, kavasach mistaver. It is logical, like you were saying. It is reasonable to assume your position, which is that for a kura, for a palm shoot, one makes a bar piyadam. Why? I can prove it to you. The ha'atznain, a radish, soifer lahakshis, although it eventually hardens if it's left in the ground for a longer period. Nevertheless, what bracha do we make on radish? We make adama. So we see that the svara of soifer lahakshis doesn't affect the bracha. Although something will eventually harden, nevertheless, if you can eat it now, when it's still perfectly edible, it requires a hadama. So regarding the kura, the shoots of the palm as well, they require hadama. Says it is not a proof. You can't compare the radish to the kura. Tznoin nati inshi adai to the pugla. We have to look at the intent of people when they plant this item. The initial intention when planting a tznoin, a radish, is to eat it adat to the pugla, to eat it when it's still soft and edible. So even though eventually it's going to harden, but the machshava, the das bnei adam, the intent, the purpose of planting is to eat it when it is still soft and edible. However, dikla, palm tree, loinati in shiadai to the kura. The intent when planting the palm tree was not to eat these fresh shoots. As Rashi explains, this harms the tree. It diminishes its size and its branches. This is not the intent and purpose when planting the tree. Therefore, the determinant factor is the das bnei adam, the intention, the mind of people. And therefore, a tznayin certainly requires a hadama, although it will harden eventually. But the das bnei adam is to eat it when it's edible, when it's soft and edible. However, the branch of the palm tree, there's no kavanah, there's no attention. When it's planted, the kavanah, the das bnei adam is not to eat it. And therefore, it's not considered to be a ikar food, and we make a shahaka. Says the Gemara, if so, there's no raya from the radish to the palm tree. Shmuel's raya, Shmuel's comparison doesn't really hold. We can differentiate and make a distinction between two things. Says the Gemara, is that true? That the determinant factor regarding brachos is the das bnei adam, the intention of the people who planted. When people's intention during the initial planting is not for this purpose, not to ingest, to consume a certain part of the plant, that doesn't require the proper bracha. Says the Gemara, let's bring you a raya about it. Slaf. There's a plant called slaf that is a caper bush, which contains a number of edible elements. There are the olim, the leaves, there are the tamaris, these date-like protrusions and some type of tamaris, these date-shaped items that are edible, but they're not the ikar fruit. We have the avyonos, which are the actual berries. We have the kafrisin, which are the peels, the husks around the avyonos. So we have 4 different types of edible items within the tzlaf, the caper bush. It says in slaf, the nati inshi. What is the intent? What is the purpose when you plant the tzlaf? Adai to the pircha. The main intent is for the actual fruit, the avyonos. Nevertheless, one is required to make a hadama on all the other ones. Utznan, almini, nitzpa, on all the different elements, different types of edible elements within this caper bush, within the nitzpa, which is the tzlaf. What bracha does one make? Says the Mishnah, it depends. Allah olin vala tamaris, the leaves and these date-like things, oimer ber pri adama. Since it's not the primary fruit, so one makes a bracha ber pri adama. The main fruit, which is the avyonis, the berries, and the kafrisin, which are the peel, the husks, that is considered to be the primary fruit. And oimer boyer priya, since the tzlaf is considered to be a tree, so the avyonis and kafrisin, which are the main elements of this tree, require ha'etz. The olim and the tmarais are secondary, and therefore they require merely a boyer priya adama. Okay, so we see from here that although what is the primary intent upon planting the tzlaf? What is the das b'nei adam? It's to plant it for the intent, for the purpose of eating the fruit, not the olim and not the tamaris. So we see that das b'nei adam doesn't determine. So this is in contradiction to the assertion made earlier that the das b'nei adam at the time of planting is what determines hilchos brachos. Says the Gemara, no. Omar Rav Nachman Yitzchak, tzlaf, not the inshi adaita deshusa. You made an erroneous assertion. Tzlaf, this caper bush, indeed, that is the kavanah of people. Tzlaf, not the inshi adaita deshusa. When people plant the tzlaf, they do have it in mind. They have a comprehensive das. They want to be able to eat everything, all the different things that sprout out of this tzlaf. Whether it's the olim, the leaves, the tamaris, the dates, the avyonis, the fruits, and the kafrisim, and the husks. Therefore, one makes a proper bracha on all these elements. However, dikla, regarding a palm tree, the intention is not to eat the shoots. Since, as we said, it harms the tree. It diminishes, it reduces its branches. Therefore, we understand why by a tzlaf, a bracha is required on all elements of the tzlaf. Regarding a kura, regarding the shoots of a palm tree, the proper bracha is not required on the shoots. We don't make a hadama since the initial das b'nei adam is not to plant it for the shoots. Says the Gemara, okay, v'avagav the kilso Shmuel Rav Yehuda. Even though Shmuel praised Rav Yehuda and he said to Rav Yehuda, your svara, your opinion, that for a kura, for a palm shoot, one makes a hadama, that it seems to be correct. Even though he praised him, the maskana, the final ruling, the hilcha says, Shmuel, we follow Shmuel's opinion, that the bracha, the proper bracha on the kura, on the palm shoot, is not hadama, but rather shahakal, since the das b'nei adam is not to plant it for the sake of eating the palm shoots. So in conclusion, we have three different cases in the Gemara. We have the halacha of kura. We make a shahakal since when people plant the palm tree, it is not with the intention to eat these shoots. We have a halacha of tznoin, of a radish. We make a hadama, since the das of inshi is to eat it when it is edible. And finally we have the halacha of tzlaf, where we do make a bracha on all elements of the tzlaf, since it is das b'nei adam, the intention of the one who plants it, to partake, to ingest, to eat all the different elements of the tzlaf tree. Continues the Gemara. Omar Rav Yidamarav. Slav shel orla b'chutz la'aretz. If one would like to eat slaf of orla first 3 years, b'chutz la'aretz, in chutz la'aretz, orla is midrabanan. So what does he do? Zorek is avyonis. He needs to discard the avyonis, the primary fruit, since it's forbidden, since that is the pri ha'etz, and it is orla. V'oichlas kafrisin, and he may eat the kafrisin, the husks. The kafrisin are not considered to be the fruit of the slaf. Lememra, apparently you hold the avyonis pri. Only the avyonis are considered to be the pri, the kafrisin laf pri. But the kafrisin, the shell, is not considered to be a pri, and therefore not prohibited, not asa mishum orla. Says the Gemara, we have a brisa which told us otherwise. The brisa that we just learned. V'ramini, almine nitzpa, the different parts of the nitzpa, of the tzlaf. Ala olim v'ala tamaris, the leaves and the tamaris. Oime pri adama. V'ala avyonis v'ala kafrisin. So we see here that the avyonis and the kafrisin are both considered to be the pri ha'etz, the fruit of the tree, and therefore would be asa mishum arla. So how can you say that the kafrisin are not considered pri and are not asa mishum arla? Says the Gemara, okay, this is one shita. This brisa is shitas Rebbe Lezer, who holds indeed that the avyonis and the kafrisim are considered to be the primary fruit of the tree. However, there's a sheet of Rabbi Akiva that holds not so. He holds that only the avionis are considered to be priya, not the kafrisin, as we will see. Who the Amar Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Yudah Rav is following the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. This is not as we learned. Tzlaf misaser, you must take off meiser from tomorrow's, the dates, the avionis, the actual fruit of kafrisin, and the husks. Apparently, Rabbi Lezer holds that not only avionis are considered to be a fruit, but also the kafrisin. And therefore, regarding Erla, both are aser. Now, Rabbi Lezer adds a halacha regarding meiser, that also, regarding meiser, all three items need meiser, whether it's the avionis and kafrisin, since they are considered to be fruit. And he adds, regarding tamaris as well, the dates also require meiser. And Farshim explain, this is not because the tamaris are considered to be pri, nobody holds like that. It is because even vegetables require meiser midrabanan. Fruits and vegetables are obligated in meiser midrabanan, and therefore Rabbi Lezer requires the tamaris to be gemeisered because they are considered to be like vegetables. They're not the primary fruit, they are secondary, they are considered to be like priya adama, vegetables, and they too require meiser. But regarding our context here, we see from Rabbi Lezer that what is considered, what has the status, what has the classification as pri, regarding Erla, regarding everything else, it is the avionis and the kafrisin. However, Akiva Omer, only the avionis are considered to be fruit and require meiser, mepnei shu pri, but not the kafrisin. So Rabbi Yudah Marav, who said that only the avionis are considered to be a fruit, and only the avionis are also mishum erla, he went according to the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, which says the same thing. Says the Gemara, v'nei malach Rabbi Akiva. If so, why does he need to compose a new halacha? Why doesn't he simply state, Omar Rabbi Yudah Marav, the halacha is like Rabbi Akiva, that only the avionis are pri? Says the Gemara, Omar malach Rabbi Akiva. If you would only said that term, havamina, there would be room for mistake. I would say, afilu ba'aretz, that even regarding the halacha of Erla in Eretz Yisrael, which is mid-oraisa, we follow the lenient view of Rabbi Akiva that only the avionis are pri, and he didn't want us to make that mistake. Kamashwan, therefore, he informs us that only in Chutz La'aretz we can follow the lenient view of Rabbi Akiva and regard only the avionis as pri and not the kafrisin. Why? Kol ha'mekel ba'aretz. Whenever there's a lenient view regarding Erla and Eretz Yisrael, halacha k'maisa b'chutz la'aretz, we follow that shita regarding Erla and Chutz La'aretz, since in Chutz La'aretz it is the Rabbanon. So we follow the lenient view, as we know, Safek Rabbanon Lekula. Regarding halachas Rabbanon, rabbinic obligations, we follow the lenient view. Aval ba'aretz loy, but in Eretz Yisrael, which Erla is mida oraisa, is biblically obligated, there we do not follow the leniency of Rabbi Akiva, and we regard the avionis and the kafrisin to be peiros and are asam shum Erla. Says the Gemara, okay, but v'neima halach Rabbi Akiva b'chutz la'aretz. Why doesn't Rabbi Yudah simply say that the halachas are Rabbi Akiva in chutz la'aretz? If he wants to avoid confusion, let him say it with clarity. We paskin like Rabbi Akiva in chutz la'aretz. The chol ha'mekel ba'aretz halacha k'maisa b'chutz la'aretz. The reason being, since Rabbi Akiva is a lenient view, and we follow that shita in chutz la'aretz. Says the Gemara, Amar Hachi, if Rabbi Yudah would merely have said it in that form, havamina, there would be room for another mistake. I would say hana mili gabe ma'is ilan, that we follow Rabbi Akiva's halacha regarding the obligation of meiser. Rabbi Akiva's discussion with Rabbi Lezer was regarding the obligation of tumas and meiser, and we know that the chiyuv of meiser ilan of a tree, even in Eretz Yisrael, beretz gufa midrabanan is only a chiyuv midrabanan, as Rashi explains. The chiyuv midoraisa, the chiyuv of tumas and meiser deraisa only applies to three items: dagan, tirish, and yitzar, grain, oil, and wine. But fruits and vegetables are only chayiv midrabanan. So if you would have merely stated that we follow Rabbi Akiva's view, perhaps I would say that is regarding the discussion of Rabbi Akiva, which is applied to tumas and meiseros. Tumas and meiser of what? Of ilan, of fruit from a tree, which is only the Rabbana. Aval gabe Erla, but regarding the chiyuv Erla, the Isser Erla, which is midaraisa, the ba'aretz midaraisa, the Erla, which in Eretz Yisrael is daraisa, perhaps in that case I would say, Eima b'chutz la'aretz na'amid ligzar. Since Erla is a chiyuv d'oraisa in Eretz Yisrael, so even in chutz la'aretz, where Erla is midrabanan, but since the basis for Erla is midoraisa, Erla in Eretz Yisrael is midoraisa. Therefore, perhaps I would say that even in chutz la'aretz, we need to be stringent, since the source of the Issa Erla is the Oraisa, even though now in chutz la'aretz is the Rabbanon. Perhaps I can't follow a lenient view regarding the Hilchas Erla. It is only regarding Hilchas Maser where it is entirely Midrabanan. Even Eretz Yisrael, Ma'aseh Ilun is Drabanan. Therefore, we follow Rabbi Akiva's lenient view. But regarding Erla, even if it's in Chutz La'aretz, which is Drabanan, but since the basis for Issa Erla is the Raisa, and Eretz Yisrael Erla is the Raisa, I would think that we cannot follow the lenient view of Rabbi Akiva. Kamash Malon. Therefore, Rabbi Yehuda Rav needs to teach us, yes, even regarding Erla, we follow the lenient view, and in Chutz La'aretz at least, we say that only the Avyonis are considered to be Peiros and not the Kafrisin. Continues the Gemara, Ravina Ashi Chayla Mavravashi. He noticed Mavravashi, who was doing the following, the Kazorik Avyonis V'Gachal Kafrisin. He was tossing away, discarding the Avyonis, and he was eating the Kafrisin, since the Avyonis are Asar Mishum Arla, so he discarded them, but ate the Kafrisin, since they're not considered to be a Peri and they're not Asar Mishum Arla. Amar Lei, so Ravina told him, My Daitach Rabbi Akiva? Are you following the lenient view of Rabbi Akiva, the Mekel who is lenient and only considers the Avyonis to be Paris and not the Kafrisin? Beloved, Marki Beis Shammai, the Mekilat Fei, why don't you follow Beis Shammai's view, who are even more lenient? They will say that even the Avyonis is a suffix, we're uncertain of whether they're Arla or not, and therefore in Chutz La'aretz one can eat suffix Arla. Let's see the Mishnah. The Snan, Slaf. What is the status of the Slaf of the caper bush? Beis Shammai Kalayim Bekerem. We know that one may not plant grains or vegetables in a vineyard. It's considered to be kalayim. It says Beis Shammai, a tzlaf is considered to be a vegetable, yarok, and one may not plant it in a kerem. Basil oimrim, ein kalayim bekerem. A tzlaf is considered to be a tree, and is not considered to be a vegetable. So Beis Shammai holds that since it is a small-sized tree, we consider it to be a yarok, and it is kalayim bekerem. Basil says no, since it regrows every year, it's perennial type of plant, type of tree, it has the halacha status of a elon, and it's not considered to be kalayim in a kerem. Continues the Mishnah, Elu Moedim both agree, Beis Shammai and Basil both agree, Shechai Ba'arla, that the halachas of Arla apply to this tzlaf. Says the Gemara Hoguf Akasha. This is a self-contradictory statement. Why? Amris tzlaf Beis Shammai and kalayim bekerem. First you say that Beis Shammai considers tzlaf to be kalayim bekerem. Alma min yaraku. Apparently he considers it to be a vegetable. Then you go and say that everybody agrees, Beis Shammai agrees that a tzlaf has the halachas of Arla, which apply only to a tree. Is it a vegetable or is it a tree? Says Gemara, Alma min elanu. Apparently it's a tree. So this is a self-contradiction. Says the Gemara Holekasha, this is not difficult. Beis Shammai tzvukim misavkelu. Beis Shammai had an uncertainty, a suffix regarding the status of the tzlaf. Is it a vegetable? Is it a fruit tree? And therefore they went l'chumra. They adopted all the stringencies. Regarding kerem, they prohibited from being planted in the kerem. Perhaps it's considered to be a yarok, a vegetable tree. Regarding Arla, they required one to observe the dinim of Arla on the tzlaf. Perhaps it's considered to be a fruit tree. So in any case we see that Beis Shammai considers that tzlaf to be an uncertainty, a suffix Arla. Beis Shammai have a suffix Arla. And we know the halacha of suffix Arla in Chutz La'aretz is mutar. Utanam, suffix Arla Eretz Yisrael. If there's a suffix and uncertainty regarding Arla in Eretz Yisrael, where Arla is Asa Midairaisa, Asa. It's prohibited. Ube Syria, in Syria, which was captured by David HaMelech, and this Tana holds that something which was captured by a Yachar, by an individual, doesn't really get the status of Eretz Yisrael completely. Therefore, over there, suffix Arla is mutar. Ube Chutz La'aretz, a suffix Arla in Chutz La'aretz. Suppose one approaches an orchard which contains young trees which are Arla, older trees which are not. He may even go by from this orchard. As long as he doesn't see the owner actually picking the fruit from the Arla tree. So we see clearly that in Chutz La'aretz, suffix Arla is mutar. So this was his question. Why do you need to toss away the Avyonis? Follow the leniency of Beis Shammai, who say that a tzlaf, a caper bush, is considered to be a suffix Arla, and we know that a suffix Arla in Chutz La'aretz is mutar entirely. So you can eat it. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva, Makom Rabbi Lezer, Avdin Kavasei. When we have a machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Lezer, the opinion of Rabbi Akiva with regard in contrast to Rabbi Lezer, meaning we had a machlokes between Rabbi Akiva who says that only the Avyonis are considered to be a pri. We have Rabbi Lezer who says the Avyonis and the Karfisim are considered to be pri. So Rabbi Akiva's view, in contrast to Rabbi Lezer, Avdin Kavasei, we can follow Rabbi Akiva. It's valid. It's a valid shita. However, regarding a machlokes Beis Shammai Basil, the consensus, the conclusion always is we pass and we follow Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai b'makom Beis Hillel, when there's a machlokes Beis Shammai in the place of Beis Hillel, Eina Mishnah. It has no validity, has no authority. Therefore, he was required to toss away the avyonos in accordance with the Shita of Rabbi Kiva, who says that avyonos are pri. And he could not follow the leniency of Beis Shammai, who considered to be the avyonos an uncertain arla, a suffix arla, which would be mutter and chutzlar, since Beis Shammai's opinion is not considered an authoritative opinion in contrast to Beis Hillel. So in conclusion, we have several shitas regarding the tzlaf. What is the status of a tzlaf? We have three shitas. We have one shita of Rebbe Lezer who says that avyonos, the actual berries, and the karfrisim, the husk, the peel, the shell, is considered to be peris. According to Rebbe Kiva, only the avyonos, only the actual berries, is considered to be a pri. According to Beis Shammai, even that is a suffix uncertainty, and in chutz la'aretz would be mutter. Would be considered a suffix arla, which is mutter in chutz la'aretz. Continues the Gemara. So we had a story, halacha, that he used to throw away the avyonos, but he ate the karfrisin. Only the avyonos, only the berries are considered to be the pri, but not the karfrisin. The karfrisin are permitted even during early years. Says the Gemara, okay, it's not a pri, it's not a fruit, but it should have the status of a shomer pri. We know that if one is guarding the pri, one is protecting the pri, a peel, a shell, that too is asur mishum arla. Says the Gemara, v'tepikle the nasa shomer pri. The kafrisin, the shell, the peel, the husk, is guarding, is protecting the fruit. And we know, V'rachman Amar, the Torah teaches us, V'araltem arla is puriyai. You must prohibit, you must not eat the pri, and not only the actual pri, but es hatafel piriya, even something which is subordinate to the pri, umaniyu shaymel pri, even something which protects the pri. So how is he allowed to eat the kafrisin, which will protect the berries? Amar Rava, says the Gemara, we have three explanations in the Gemara. Number one, Amar Rava, hey chamrina denasa shaymel pri. When is something considered to be a protector for a pri? If this protector is present when the fruit is attached to the tree and also stays on when it is detached, then it's considered to be a protector. However, regarding the kafrisin, by kafrisin, he is present only when the fruit, when the avyonos are attached. But once you detach it, the kafrisin wither away, as Rashi says, when it gets ripe, it is neifelim and it falls off, and therefore the kafrisin are not considered to be a shomer and are not asur mishum arla. How can you say that the determinant factor, what's considered to be a shomer, is if it's present when it is attached or detached? Says the Mishnah, pitma shel riman, the pitum, the protrusion, the top portion of the riman, the pointy part that protrudes, mitztarefes, that combines with the riman. This is regarding the halacha of tumas oichlin. We know if food becomes tamei, it can't transmit tumah to something else if it has a sheer amount of a kibetza. So if the riman, the pomegranate, together with its pitam, which is point, which is a protrusion, combines to a sheer of kibetza, it can be matame. Why? Since the pitam is considered to be a guarder, a protector of the riman, and we know that a shomer is mitzdarv, combines with the food to be considered a shir kibetza. Pitma shel riman mitzdarefes. However, the hanetz shaloi, that is some fibrous, some hairy thing that grows around this pitam, that is not mitzdarv, a mitzdarv, doesn't combine with the food. Why? Explains Rashi. Since the nates is considered to be a shomer al kabe shomer, is a protector which is situated on top of another protector. It is a shomer on top of the pitam, so that can't be mitzdarif with the food to be considered a shir kibetza. Okay, so that is halacha regarding to Masechem. Says the Gemara. Apparently, apparently the nets. Why doesn't it combine? It's not considered to be. It's not constituted. It doesn't constitute oichel. It's not considered to be part of the food, part of the pomegranate. However, v'tanan gabi arla, we learned the halacha regarding arla, klipe riman, v'haneit shaloi, the peel of the riman, the neit shaloi, and the klipe goes in the shell of the walnuts, v'garnim and the pits, chayam ba'arla, they are all included in the prohibition of arla. So you see clearly, even though the nates is not considered to be part of the food, regarding tumas oichlin is not mitzdarif, nevertheless we have a Mishnah which teaches us clearly that arla is different. Anything that's attached to the fruit, even the nates, even though it falls off when it dries up, even though it falls off when it's detached from the tree, when you remove the pomegranate from the tree, eventually the net dries up and falls off. So why is it considered to be part of the Isur Arla? Apparently you're wrong. You've told us, Rava just told us, that the halacha of shomer, having the same Isur Arla as the priest, only if the shomer is present, baby mechuber b'metolish, when it is attached to the tree and also when it is detached. We know that the nates is considered to be part of the fruit. It has the Isur Arla of the pomegranate, even though it eventually falls off. So you can't make that assertion. Elamar Rava, I'll give you a different reason, a different description and determinant of what's considered to be a shomer and what is not. Elamar Rava, what constitutes a protector? When the shomer, when the protector is there, when the fruit ripens, it is considered to be a shomer lepri, since it's present when the fruit fully ripens and develops, and then it is considered to be a pri. The shomer that's present, that's there when the fruit develops and ripens, that is considered to be a shomer. However, hi kafris, this kafris, this peel around the avyonis, is not there when the avyonis ripens, and therefore it's not considered to be a shomer, and it's not asa mishum arla. Says Gemara, is that a true fact? The determinant is whether the shomer is there when it ripens. Haven't we learned? Hani matchil the arla. These are the shell around, the peel around the young dates, the immature dates. Asiri are asa mishum arla. Why? Because the matchili, these peels, are considered to be a protector of these dates. Says Gemara, what are we speaking about? What stage does the date contain this matchili, this shomer? What are we speaking about? B'kufra, when it's still immature and still young. And the Rav Nachman gives it the status of a shomer. It is asham shum arla. Apparently, a shomer doesn't need to be there when it's ripe, even when it's still young and immature. The shomer that's there then is considered to be a shomer lepri. Says the Gemara, it's not a kasha. Rav Nachman is following the opinion of Rav Yosi, who holds even a young fruit, an unripe fruit, has the status of a pri, and therefore anything that's protecting it is a shomer lepri. But the Chacham disagree. Chacham hold that a term pri, fruit, can only be given to a ripe fruit, and therefore, in order for it to be considered to be a shomer lepri, it needs to be a shomer on a ripe fruit. Let's see, this is not as we learned. Rav Yosi Omer, smadar aser. A smother is a young budding grape, which the blossom has fallen off, and the grapes are already beginning to be discernible on their own. That is already asur mishum arla. Pri is considered to be a pri. So Rabbi Yosi considers even a young budding grape to be a pri, even though it's unripe. Or pliger, Rabbanon disagree, and they hold that the term pri can only apply to a fully ripe fruit, and therefore Rav Nachman is following Rabbi Yosi. We don't hold that way. We hold that a pri, the term pri can only be given to apply to a fully ripe fruit. And a shomer lepri is only when it is guarding, it is protecting a fully ripe fruit. It says regarding a grape, certainly the Rabbanan hold, it needs to be fully ripe. But other fruits, regarding other fruits, do the Rabbanan disagree, Rabbi Yosi? We have a mission that clearly tells us that regarding other fruits, Rabbanan agree that even a small, unripe fruit has the halacha, has the status of a pri. Tanana we learned. This is regarding cutting off the allowance to cut off a fruit tree on Shvius. And Torah says that the fruits of Shvius are meant to be eaten, not to be destroyed, to be ruined. Therefore, a tree which is already producing its fruit, you may not chop it down, you may not destroy it. Now, from what point is it considered to be producing its fruit? What point of development, what stage of development is it already considered to be that it's bearing fruit and you may not cut off the tree? All fruit trees, as soon as they begin producing their fruit, it depends. Carob, once it looks like chains, they're more developed, they look like chains. Vines, when the grapes start getting to the point of yigru, which is a Gemara will say the size of a bean. Olives, when they start growing this growth around them. That is only a restriction regarding these three types of produce: carob, grapes, olives. However, all other ilanos, all other fruit trees, they agree to Beis Shammai. As soon as it begins to grow the fruit, it is already considered to be a fruit, and you may not cut off the tree. V'amar Basi, hu boiser, hu gerua, hu pulalavan. When Beis Hillel say that the size of the geffen is meshiyigru, that is the same size as boiser, same size as pulalavan of a white bean. Says, 1 second, what do you mean a white bean? We're speaking about a white bean, we're speaking about a grape. The size of a white bean. Okay, so the bottom line is, they still hold that when is a grape considered to be a pri? When it gets to the point of a gerua, the size of boiser, the size of pulavan, it looks like has the size of a white bean. Now, who is this opinion? Man shamasle, the Amar boiser in smadalai. Who is this opinion? Who holds that a grape is only considered to be a pri once it gets to boiser, a more developed stage? But if it's younger than that, it's merely a smadar, a budding grape, it is not considered to be a fruit. Whose shita is this? Rekiva says even a budding grape is a pri. Beis Hillel say no, that we require bigger than that. We require boiser. It is already bigger than that, the size of a white bean. Rabbanon, it is the sheet of the Rabbanon. Uktani, and Beis Hillel says that that only regarding these three items, carob, grapes, olives, they require to be a little bit more grown, more developed to be considered to be pri. However, regarding other ilanos, other fruit trees, as soon as they start producing their fruit, even they're very young and small, even if they're immature and unripe, it is already considered to be a pri. So apparently the Rabbanan agree that even an unripe fruit has the status of a fruit. So getting back to our original discussion regarding a shomer, how can you say that in order for it to be considered to be a shomer, a protector, in order for the shomer to have the din of the pri and to be asam mishru erla, the protector needs to be there when the fruit is ripe, because otherwise it's not considered to be a pri. We know that is not so. The Rabbanan, even the Rabbanan agree that regarding all other fruits, aside from carob, grapes and olives, all other fruits, even when they're young and unripe, they have the halacha of a pri, and therefore if they contain a protector, a shomer, this shomer has the din of the pri and is asam mishum erla. So again, getting back to our discussion regarding kafrisin, why is the kafrisin not asam mishum erla? Since they are protecting the avyonis and it has the din of a shomer a pri, and since they are there at any point and stage of its development, it is considered to be a shomer. Ella finally, says the Gemara, I will give you a different parameter for shomer. What is classified? What constitutes a shomer? Ella marava. Hey, chamrin of a shomer lepri. When does it have a din of shomer protector and is asur mishum erla like the fruit itself? Is only eicha when it protects it to the point to kri shaklis al shomer. When you remove the shomer, mayis pera, the fruit will dry up. That is a true protector. Heicha by us the kri shaklis al mayis pera. By us, when we remove the kafrisin from the avyonis is safe and sound, it doesn't die. And therefore it is not considered to be a shomer and is not asur mishum erla and can be eaten even when the avyonis are erla. However, there was a story of shaklu they removed the nates of the rimoin and the rimoin dried up, shriveled up and died. They took away the parcha de betisa, the peel, the kafrisin around the betisa, around the tzlav, around the avyonis. The kain betisa didn't affect the avyonis, the berry, the capeberry remained fresh and healthy, safe and sound. So in conclusion, what is a shomer? We have three stages in the Gemara. Firstly, the Gemara said a shomer needs to be there even when the fruit is detached. The Gemara changed and went to the next stage, that a shomer is something which is there b'shas gemar peri, during the ripening of the fruit. Finally, the Gemara concluded a shomer is something which protects the fruit. In its absence, the fruit will dry up and shrivel. However, regarding our discussion of tzlaf, the kafrisin, even though they're protecting the avyonis, but if you remove the kafrisin, the avyonis are safe and sound, and therefore it doesn't constitute a shomer and is not asam mishum erla, and therefore that explains why he ate the kafrisin, although he needed to discard the avyonis. Continues the Gemara pilpuli. What about peppercorn? That's the small types of peppers that are generally used for seasoning. It's not meant to be eaten as a vegetable. What is the status? What is the halach? What is the bracha on a pilpuli? Rav Sheish Amar Shakol, Rav Amar Loiklum, don't make any bracha. Va'azar of Tamei, Rav is following his opinion. The Amar Rav, Kas pilpuli b'yamid kippuri. If one chews on pilpuli on Yom Kippur, pater, he is pater from kares. Since it's not edible, it's not considered to be an achila. However, kas on gvil b'yamid kippurim, the same thing regarding if one chews ginger on Yom Kippur, pater, it is also not considered to be an achila and he's pater. Meisvei, we have a brayso which tells us that pilpuli is considered to be a food. A Torah tells us we need to observe the halachas of erla. Torah is speaking about a fruit. Certainly we know we're speaking about a fruit tree. If so, why does the Torah need to elaborate? Why does the Torah need to stress that we're speaking about a fruit tree? Lahavi, Torah means to include something. eitz, a type of tree, shetam eitzu pirishava, a type of tree that the fruit has a similar taste, the same taste of its wood, and that too is chayv and orla. Ve'eza, what are we speaking about? Zapilpulin. We're speaking about this type of peppercorn. La metcha. This teaches us sha'pilpulin chayav ba'orla. That pilpulin are also chayv and orla, and it is considered to be a fruit tree. Ula metcha also teaches us she'ein Eretz Yisrael chaser klum. You find everything in Eretz Yisrael. All species. Shneimar Eretz asher meiskenus techa balechem, a land where you will eat bread without poverty. Lo yisechsa kol ba. There will be nothing missing there. So apparently, a pilpul is edible. It is a fruit tree. How can you say that you make no bracha on it? If one eats it on Yom Kippur, he's potter. Like kasha is not difficult. Depends what type of pilpul. However, tifta, if it's fresh and edible, then surely it's a hadama and it's a food. We're speaking about a dried pilpul. It's not edible. And therefore, in that case, there's no bracha and you are potter Yom Kippur. Amalei Rabbeinu Lameimar. Kos zangvila. B'yom Kippur potter. If one chews on a ginger and Kippur, he's potter. Says the Gemara of Amar Rava, how could that be so? Didn't Rava teach us? Hayimlasa. This is the type of paste made from ground ginger and honey. The also in Hinduya comes from this Hinduya, the Rashi says kushim. It comes from this Goisha place, Sharia. You're allowed to eat it. We're not concerned about the fact that it was cooked by the Goyim, since the halacha is that something which is edible raw is not also when it's cooked by the Goy. We're not concerned about treifa that they use on non-kosher pots, so you're allowed to eat it. What bracha do you make on this paste? So apparently, if we say that ginger is edible raw, apparently it's something which is edible even when it's raw, and this is in contradiction to the halacha said earlier that if one chews on ginger on Yom Kippur, he's potter. Says the Gemara, the same terrace like kasha, it's not difficult. Depends if it's fresh and moist and edible, or if it's dry and not edible. So in conclusion, regarding these two items, pilpli and zangvil, according to Rava, when it's fresh and edible, you make a hadama, and it's chayv and Yom Kippur. If it's yaveshta, if it's dried up, in that case it's primarily used for seasoning, it's not meant to be eaten as is, and there's no bracha, and on Yom Kippur is pot. Continues the Gemara, chavetz kedera. If there is this type of dish made from flour, with honey, with oil, v'chein daisa, regarding a porridge, Rabbi Yehuda Omer shakolin yadvarim. We make a shahak on these two items. Rav Kahana m'bayim mezainis. Says the Gemara, what are we speaking about? But daisa grade, an ordinary porridge, which is grains which are crushed with a mortar. Certainly in that case, it's a cereal, kulamule pligi. Of course, you make a dvar bin mezainis. Ki pligi, the discussion here is bedaisa kein chavetz kedera. A porridge made like a chavetz kedera. You put a lot of sweetener in there, a lot of honey. So in that case, we have achlekes. Rav Yehuda Omer shakol. Make a shakol, even though it contains grain. Savar duv sheikar. The honey is the primary ingredient. Therefore, you don't make a mezainis, but rather you make a shahaka. Rav Kahana Amar bar min mezainis savar smidikar. The flour is primary and requires a bar min mezainis. Omar Rav Yosef kavos Rav Kahana mistavra. It is rational. The svara. It is logical to follow Rav Kahana's halacha, that since it is made from grain, even though the dvash is ikr, there's a lot of honey in there, nevertheless, the grain assumes the identity of the whole entire dish. Since the grain is significant, that takes over the whole status. Mistavra, the Rav Shmuel Damar Tavayu, since Rav Shmuel both told us the following halacha: Kol sheyesh b'hem chamesh saminim, any dish that contains even a little bit, a small element of the 5 grains, make a mezainis, since the 5 grains are so significant and chashuv, even though they're only a small minor element, a small ingredient, nevertheless they overtake the whole dish, and you make a bar min mezainis. Tosha stresses this is only when the grain is put there l'sayit, to satiate, to add to the satiating property of the dish. But if it's only there l'davik, to act as a binding agent, l'davik ba'alma, in that case, it is not significant, and we do not make a bar bin mezainis.